The luminous invasion. The United Earth ship Defiance cut through the darkness of space with precision, its sleek hull reflecting the distant glow of Neptune. Captain Ilara Reeves stood on the bridge, her steady gaze fixed on the holographic display that dominated the command center. "Status report," she said, her voice carrying the weight of 15 years in Earth's unified space forces. Lieutenant Marcus Chen responded immediately. "All systems nominal, Captain. We're maintaining standard patrol route along Neptune's orbital path. Ganymede Station reports all quiet in the outer system." Ilara nodded, but couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that had been growing in her gut for the past week. The Defiance, Earth's most advanced defensive battleship, had been dispatched to investigate unusual gravitational fluctuations detected near the heliopause. High Command didn't send their flagship on routine missions without good reason. "Any updates on those gravitational anomalies, Dr. Novak?" she asked, turning to the science station. Dr. Amelia Novak, the ship's chief physicist, frowned at her instruments. "They're intensifying, Captain. Whatever's causing them is massive and moving in a non-random pattern. Definitely not natural phenomena." She tapped the display, enlarging a section of space beyond Neptune. "At current trajectory, they'll reach Neptune's orbit within 12 hours. The implications hung heavy in the air. Humanity had expanded throughout the solar system over the past century. Mars colonies, asteroid belt mining operations, research stations on the moons of gas giants. But in all that time, they had found no evidence of intelligent alien life. Until now. "All senior officers to the briefing room," Ilara ordered, straightening her uniform, "and get me a direct line to Admiral Washington at High Command." The briefing room buzzed with tense anticipation as Ilara addressed her team. Commander Jamal Ibrahim, her experienced XO, maintained a composed expression despite the gravity of the situation. Chief Engineer Olivia Santos tapped rapidly on her tablet, running simulations. Security Chief Victor Petrov leaned forward, his broad shoulders tense. "The anomalies are artificial," Ilara began, displaying the sensor data. "They bear all the hallmarks of advanced propulsion technology, far beyond our current capabilities. High Command believes we're looking at first contact." A collective intake of breath filled the room. Humanity had prepared protocols for this moment, but reality hit differently than simulations. "Are they responding to our transmissions?" Ibrahim asked. "No response on any channel or frequency," Ilara replied. "But they've made multiple course corrections, demonstrating deliberate navigation toward our position." "Peaceful or hostile?" Petrov asked bluntly. "Unknown," Ilara admitted. "But we're the first line of defense if it's the latter. I need all departments at maximum readiness." The next 8 hours passed in meticulous preparation. Weapon systems were calibrated, shield generators hummed at standby capacity, and every available sensor focused on the approaching anomaly, which had resolved into multiple distinct objects. "My God," Dr. Novak whispered when the alien vessels finally came into visual range. "There are hundreds of them." The alien ships moved with impossible synchronization, their hulls shimmering with a luminescent material that seemed to pulse with internal light. Leading the armada was a massive vessel that dwarfed the Defiance by at least 7 times, surrounded by smaller craft that flowed around it like schools of fish. "Final attempt at communication," Ilara ordered, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "All languages, all frequencies. Make it clear we're willing to establish peaceful contact." For 5 tense minutes, the Defiance broadcast humanity's greeting, a message carefully crafted by linguists, mathematicians, and diplomats decades earlier. A universal offering of peace encoded with basic scientific principles that any advanced civilization should understand. The response came not in words but in energy. A blinding beam of concentrated particles lanced out from the lead alien vessel, striking Neptune's research outpost. The station, home to 63 scientists and engineers, vanished in a flash of superheated plasma. Alarms blared across the Defiance's bridge. Ilara's training took over instantly. Red alert. Defensive positions. Get those shields up now. The alien fleet, which Ilara would later dub the Luminous Collective, for their glowing ships, accelerated into an attack formation that demonstrated frightening tactical sophistication. Energy weapons erupted toward the Defiance and the remaining Neptune installations. Return fire, Ilara ordered. All batteries, target the smaller vessels first. The Defiance's railguns roared to life, accelerating tungsten projectiles to a fraction of light speed. The first volley struck 2 alien ships, which erupted in silent explosions. But for each vessel destroyed, 10 more took its place, their weapons tearing into the human defenses. Shields at 65%. Chen shouted over the cacophony of battle stations. "We can't withstand this level of firepower for long, Captain." Ilara gripped the command chair as the ship shuddered under another impact. Status of Neptune Station. Evacuating civilians to emergency shuttles, Ibrahim reported grimly. But the orbital platforms are already gone. The realization settled heavily on Ilara's shoulders. The Defiance stood alone between an overwhelming alien force and the 8,000 colonists on Neptune's moons. Retreat wasn't an option. The aliens' superior speed would overtake them before they reached Uranus, let alone Earth. They had to find a way to slow the enemy's advance, to buy time for humanity to prepare. "Santos," she called to her engineer, "what are you seeing in their attack patterns?" The engineer had been analyzing the sensor data even as the battle raged. "They're coordinated, too coordinated. I think they're using some kind of centralized command and control system. The signals are emanating from the mothership." Ilara studied the tactical display, watching the alien vessels move with uncanny synchronization. "Like a hive mind." "Possibly," Dr. Novak interjected. "But more importantly, I'm detecting unusual energy fluctuations whenever they fire their main weapons. Their systems are heavily shielded against radiation and electromagnetic interference, but not against kinetic impacts." Santos finished, a spark of inspiration in her eyes. "That's why our railguns are effective when they hit, but their energy shields are stopping our laser arrays completely." Another blast rocked the ship. "Shields at 42%, Chen reported, his voice tight with strain. Ilara's mind raced through the possibilities. High Command couldn't send reinforcements for days. By then, Neptune would be lost, and the alien fleet would be pushing deeper into the solar system. They needed a decisive action now. "Dr. Novak, those energy fluctuations, could we use them somehow? Create a feedback loop or disruption?" The physicist hesitated. "Possibly, if we could get close enough to the mothership to analyze the frequencies directly. But that would mean getting past their entire defensive screen," Ilara finished. "Petrov, how many nuclear warheads do we have in the arsenal?" The security chief's eyes widened slightly. 8 Nova-class tactical warheads, Captain. But at this range, I'm not planning to detonate them conventionally." Ilara cut in, a plan forming rapidly in her mind. "Santos, if we modified the warheads to emit a specific electromagnetic pulse, tuned to their energy signatures." The engineer's fingers flew across her console. "It could temporarily disrupt their systems. But we'd need to get dangerously close to the mothership. And we'd need a distraction," Ibrahim added. "Something to draw away their defensive screen." Ilara nodded grimly. "The Neptune mining facilities. They're being evacuated, but their fusion reactors are still online. If we overloaded them remotely, it would create a massive energy signature," Novak finished. "The aliens might think it's a weapon being deployed." The plan was desperate, with slim chances of success. But against an overwhelming enemy, sometimes audacity was the only viable strategy. "Make it happen," Ilara ordered, "and send a tight beam transmission to High Command. They need to prepare the inner system for war." The next hour passed in frantic preparation. Santos and her team modified the warheads while Novak calculated the precise frequencies needed to disrupt the alien command signals. Petrov's security teams prepared for possible boarding actions, and Ibrahim coordinated with the retreating civilian vessels from Neptune. All preparations complete, Captain, Santos reported finally. But I have to warn you, this is untested technology against an unknown enemy. The theoretical models look promising, but we're well beyond theoretical models now, Chief, Ilara replied. Sometimes you have to play the hand you're dealt. She turned to the tactical display. Status of evacuation. Last civilian transports are clearing Neptune's orbit, Ibrahim confirmed. Mining station fusion reactors are ready for remote detonation. Ilara took a deep breath, looking at each of her senior officers in turn. They had all volunteered for this dangerous mission, knowing the stakes not just for themselves but for all of humanity. Initiate Operation Thunderclap, she ordered. Trigger the mining station reactors, then full thrust toward the mothership while their forces are distracted. Let's show these luminous bastards that humanity doesn't go down without a fight. The bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency, and Ilara felt a surge of pride. Whatever happened next, they would face it together, and perhaps give Earth the chance it needed to prepare for the storm heading its way. As the Defiance accelerated toward the heart of the alien armada, Ilara hoped it would be enough. Turning the tide. 3 days after the Neptune engagement, the Defiance limped into Mars' orbital space, its hull scarred with impact marks and energy weapon scoring. Inside the bridge, emergency lighting cast harsh shadows across exhausted faces. Captain Ilara Reeves stood before the tactical display, her uniform rumpled from days without rest. Approaching Mars Defense Station, Lieutenant Chen announced, his voice hoarse. "They're hailing us, Captain." On screen, Ilara ordered. Admiral Washington's stern face appeared, lined with new worry wrinkles. "Captain Reeves, when we lost contact after the Neptune detonations, we feared the worst. The Luminous Collective knocked out our communications array, Admiral," Ilara explained. "We've been running dark since the engagement." She paused, looking around at her weary crew. "We have wounded aboard, and the Defiance needs substantial repairs. But we've brought something more important. Tactical data on the enemy's capabilities and a potential weakness." Washington's expression hardened. "You'll brief the Joint Chiefs in 1 hour. The outer colonies are already being evacuated, and Earth is mobilizing for war." The Mars Defense Station bustled with frantic activity. Soldiers rushing to deployment positions, technicians working on weapon systems, and civilian refugees being processed for transport to Earth. Ilara strode through the corridors with Ibrahim and Dr. Novak, ignoring the whispers that followed them. News of Neptune's fall had spread quickly. In the central command hub, Earth's military leadership awaited, some in person, others as holograms. Ilara recognized General Zhao of the Asian Alliance and Colonel Martinez of the United Americas among them. "Captain Reeves," Admiral Washington began formally, "please share what you've learned about this Luminous Collective." For the next 30 minutes, Ilara detailed the enemy's capabilities, their advanced energy weapons, coordinated attack patterns, and overwhelming numbers. But when she reached the critical discovery, the room grew intensely focused. "Their ships operate on a centralized command network," she explained, as Dr. Novak displayed the sensor data they'd gathered during their desperate attack run. "When our modified EMP warheads detonated near the mothership, we observed a momentary disruption in the smaller vessel's coordination. It was enough to create a gap in their defenses and allow our escape." A tall Indian man stepped forward from the group of scientists observing the briefing. "This matches my theoretical models," he said. "I'm Dr. Sanjay Mehta, Quantum Communications Division. I've been working on signal disruption technologies for years." Admiral Washington nodded to him. "Dr. Mehta has been developing a prototype weapon system that might exploit the weakness you've identified, Captain." Dr. Mehta activated a holographic display. "The Quantum Interference Generator, or QIG, can create targeted disruptions in entangled communication systems. If the aliens are using quantum entanglement for instantaneous fleet coordination, this could effectively blind them temporarily." "How soon can it be deployed?" Ilara asked. "The prototype exists," Dr. Mehta replied. But it's never been field-tested under combat conditions, and its range is limited. We'd need to get close to the mothership again. General Zhou cut in, her voice sharp. Based on our tracking of the alien fleet's advance, we have 4 days before they reach Earth's orbit. Mars will be in their path within 36 hours. A heavy silence fell over the room as the implications sank in. Millions of lives hung in the balance. Then we make our stand at Mars, Ilara said finally. The Defiance can be made operational within 24 hours for essential systems. If Dr. Meta's device works, we could disrupt their coordination long enough for Earth's combined fleet to target the mothership. Washington exchanged glances with the other military leaders before nodding grimly. Begin preparations immediately. God help us all if this fails. The next day passed in a blur of activity. The Defiance underwent emergency repairs, while Dr. Meta and his team installed the QIG in the ship's main sensor array. Chief Engineer Santos worked miracles with limited resources, prioritizing engines, shields, and weapon systems over non-essential functions. It's not pretty, she told Ilara during a brief inspection, but she'll hold together for one more fight. Ilara placed a hand on the corridor wall, feeling the subtle vibration of the ship's systems. That's all I ask of her. One more fight. When the alien fleet arrived at Mars, humanity was waiting. Earth had contributed every available warship to the defense. 37 vessels ranging from the massive UES Everest to agile corvettes like the Buenos Aires and Nairobi. They formed a defensive screen around Mars, with the Defiance positioned in the second line alongside Dr. Meta's research vessel, the Tesla. Luminous fleet dropping out of FTL, Chen reported as alien ships began appearing on sensors. Count is over 200 vessels. Mothership detected at the center of their formation. Ilara activated the fleet-wide channel. All ships maintain defensive positions. Remember your targeting assignments. Wait for the signal before engaging. She turned to Ibrahim. Status of civilian evacuation. Phobos station is clear. Deimos at 92% evacuated. Mars surface colony still at 60% evacuation rate. Not enough time, Ilara thought. But they had no choice. Signal Dr. Meta. We're commencing Operation Sunbreaker. As the alien armada approached, humanity's fleet held their fire, appearing passive. The luminous ships pressed their advantage, accelerating toward Mars with weapons charging. They're taking the bait, Ibrahim observed tensely. Wait for it, Ilara commanded, watching the tactical display as the distance closed. The aliens needed to be within optimal range for the QIG to work effectively. When the leading edge of the alien fleet crossed the predetermined threshold, Ilara gave the order. Now. The QIG activated with a surge of power that dimmed the Defiance's lights momentarily. On the tactical display, the effect was immediate and dramatic. The perfectly coordinated alien formation faltered as ships suddenly lost their synchronized movements. Some collided with each other, while others fired weapons at empty space. It's working. Dr. Meta exclaimed from the Tesla. The mothership is attempting to reestablish control, but the quantum interference is blocking their signals. All vessels, engage. Ilara ordered. Primary targets as assigned. Focus fire on the mothership's propulsion systems. Earth's fleet surged forward, weapons blazing. Railguns, laser arrays, and missile salvos sliced through the disorganized alien formation. Without their perfect coordination, the individually smaller human vessels could exploit gaps in the enemy's defenses. The Defiance led a strike group directly toward the mothership, dodging erratic defensive fire. Shields at maximum, Ilara ordered. All power to forward batteries. The massive alien vessel loomed ahead, its luminescent hull pulsing with angry red energy as it attempted to reassert control over its fleet. Energy beams lashed out, catching the Buenos Aires and vaporizing it instantly. Maintain course, Ilara commanded, even as her heart ached for the lost crew. We need to get closer. Santos' voice came over the comm, tense but controlled. Captain, The QIG is creating feedback in their systems. Their energy signatures are becoming unstable. Dr. Novak looked up from her station, eyes wide. Captain, if we can trigger a cascade failure in their main power core, it could destroy the mothership from within, Ilara finished. How? A concentrated strike at these coordinates. Novak highlighted a section of the alien vessel. Their equivalent of a reactor housing. But our conventional weapons won't penetrate their armor there. Ilara exchanged glances with Ibrahim. They both knew what had to be done. Prepare all remaining Nova warheads, she ordered. We'll deliver them manually. Helm, plot a collision course with those coordinates. Captain. Ibrahim began to protest. Prepare the evacuation pods for the crew. Ilara cut him off. That's an order, Commander. I'll pilot the final approach myself. For a moment, Ibrahim looked ready to argue, but years of military discipline prevailed. Aye, Captain. As the bridge crew reluctantly abandoned their posts, Ilara transferred control to the captain's station. The Defiance shuddered under continued enemy fire, shields failing section by section. Evacuation complete, Captain, Ibrahim reported from the last escape pod. You don't have to do this. We could rig an autopilot. The targeting needs to be precise, Jamal, Ilara replied, using his first name for perhaps the first time in their years of service together. Someone needs to make final adjustments. Now go. That's my final order. After a moment of silence, Ibrahim responded, It's been an honor, Captain. As the last pod jettisoned, Ilara engaged full thrusters. The Defiance accelerated toward the mothership's vulnerable point, trailing debris and venting atmosphere from multiple hull breaches. Around her, the battle rage. Human ships fought with desperate courage against the still superior alien numbers, but without their perfect coordination, the luminous vessels were making mistakes, fighting as individuals rather than a collective. This is Captain Ilara Reeves of the UES Defiance. She broadcast on all frequencies as the mothership filled her view screen. You came to our home and attacked without provocation. You destroyed Neptune Station and killed thousands of innocent people. But you made one critical error. You underestimated humanity's resolve. The distance closed rapidly. Alien point defense systems targeted the Defiance, but Ilara's evasive maneuvers kept the ship on course toward its target. We may not have your technology or your numbers, she continued, hands steady on the controls as warning lights flashed across her console, but we will never surrender our home. Not to you. Not to anyone. In her final moments, Ilara thought not of her own death, but of Earth. Blue oceans, green continents, white cloud swirls. She thought of her childhood home in Kenya, of her parents, and the sister who had followed her into the space forces. She thought of all humanity had built and discovered across centuries of struggle and triumph. This is for Neptune, she whispered as the Defiance struck its target. The explosion rippled through the mothership in waves of blinding energy. As Ilara had hoped, the warheads triggered a catastrophic chain reaction in the alien vessel's power systems. The mothership split apart in a spectacular series of detonations, fragments careening into nearby alien craft. Without their central command, the remaining luminous vessels fell into disarray. Some continued fighting, while others attempted to retreat. Earth's fleet, inspired by the Defiance's sacrifice, pressed their advantage relentlessly. 3 hours later, the Battle of Mars was over. Humanity had suffered grievous losses. 14 ships destroyed, thousands of lives lost, but they had prevailed against overwhelming odds. In the aftermath, as recovery operations began and the wounded were treated, Admiral Washington stood in Mars Command Center, looking at the holographic display of the battlefield. The debris of alien and human vessels alike formed a new temporary ring around the red planet. We should have listened to her earlier, he said quietly to Dr. Mehta, who stood beside him. Captain Reeves warned us after the first encounter that the luminous collective wouldn't stop at Neptune. She gave us the time we needed, Dr. Mehta replied. Her discovery of their communication vulnerability made this victory possible. Washington nodded slowly. The first alien species we encounter tries to exterminate us. What does that say about the universe we're venturing into? Perhaps it says more about us, Meta suggested. That when pushed to the edge, humanity doesn't fall. We push back. As salvage teams recovered the Defiance's flight recorder, Captain Elara Reeves' final transmission was played for Earth's leadership. Her words spread across human settlements from Mercury to the moons of Saturn, becoming a rallying cry for a species that now understood its place in the cosmos. We may not have your technology or your numbers, but we will never surrender our home. Not to you. Not to anyone. The Luminous Collective had made first contact with humanity, and in their arrogance, they had gravely underestimated the creatures they sought to conquer. It was a mistake they would not live to regret.